At this time, I would like to take a moment to turn it over to our wonderful representative, Dr. Kelly Crace from Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you for joining me tonight and working with me on this presentation. I really appreciate it. And greetings, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to talk with you this evening, but I must be honest, I'm a little bit ambivalent about how we're doing this. This is one of my favorite days of the semester when I can meet my new colleagues, and that's just how I view you. Being able to see and work with you over these years, you have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom about your student, and you can be helpful to us as we work together and collaborate together on making sure that these years at William and Mary are ones that they hoped that it would be in their honoring us by choosing this institution. So I'm a little torn being able to come to you in this modality, but I do look forward to spending some time with you this evening to tell you a little bit about an initiative that we have that's been a part of our program for several years. And I come to you in the context of my training as a psychologist. My title is Associate Vice President for Health and Wellness. That means I serve the needs of all the health and wellness departments on campus, the Counseling Center, Student Health Center, Campus Recreation, Health Promotion, and the Center for Mindfulness and Authentic Excellence. Tonight, I'm going to talk with you about our Authentic Excellence Initiative. It's a program that's about our research that we've conducted over the past 30 years around flourishing. In all of the programs that you have and that are available to you, I also feel a little ambivalent about adding to that burden of things for you to know. But we have over 2,000 students voluntarily participate in this program every year, and the evaluations that we are given at the end of the year, the most prominent theme that they say is, please make sure the first-year students and their families learn about this initiative and learn about this program. Your students heard about me and about this program on Saturday, and so they have this information, and it's important for them to understand how this may or may not fit within their studies and within their experience over the next few years. But what I want to share with you is I want to share with you a little bit about this program and why it's here and why it's so critical right now. My background is for the past 30 years, studying the issue of flourishing. That's a term that has been used a lot over the past few years in psychology. Back when we were studying it, as we continue to study it, we defined flourishing as a consistent level of productivity, fulfillment, and resilience. Not perfect, but when you're flourishing, you feel like you're doing good work, you find meaning in that work, and you find yourself to be resilient through the hardness and harshness and unfairness of the world around that work. As we were doing this research and in our clinical work around this, we found three things that were fascinating to us. One, there are no natural born flourishers. People that flourish work at it. They're very mindful about it. They're very intentional about the strategies that promote flourishing. And the reason is because our world doesn't foster it. We live in a relentless world of uncertainty, of noise, of change, of pace, and particularly now, with the uncertainty of pandemic conditions and social unrest, this relentless nature of our world just pulls us away from flourishing. So we have to be intentional about it and mindful about it. Secondly, we discovered through our research that values play an incredibly important part in predicting flourishing. But the third thing was really fascinating to us, and that was that the more value-centered people became, the more other things came into play that we as human beings don't manage really well. And it resulted in a plateau effect. So we realized that values were absolutely critical for us to have a chance at flourishing. But that the more we focused on values, there became these portals of vulnerability that actually serve to get in our way. And we found that it's not what your values are that matter, it's how you manage them and express them to determine whether we flourish or not. In other words, we as human beings, we learned that we as human beings have a natural tendency to stay stuck at good. Now, we're lucky because your son and daughter, your student, their good is comparatively great, and we're benefiting from that. But we even know when we stay stuck at good, we suffer that at some level because we know we're getting in our way. And so what I want to do tonight is I just want to spend a few minutes sharing with you how we learned, why do we stay stuck at good? Why do we experience a plateau effect? And what do we do about it? But more importantly, I want to leave you with 3 strategies as a parent of what you can do to help your student flourish and what you can do to help me in that endeavor as well. Now, Cecilia and I have worked out some various codes because she's controlling the slides. And as she controls the slides, we thought of different nonverbals. Those of you that can join me in the old TV generation, I wish I could do the bewitched thing with my nose, but I can't do that. When I thought about, well, what's the most natural nonverbal that you wouldn't know? My natural nonverbal is to pick my nose, so that's not going to work. So we're just going to decide that whenever I lift my hands, Cecilia is going to move it forward. So that's not me waving at you every 10 seconds. That's our nonverbals. So stick with me as we move forward. I do want to bring you through to some of the slides that have shown you where my home is. My home is in the new Wellness Center. And in the Wellness Center, you'll see just this wealth of different facilities and different services and different resources that are a part of this beautiful space. It's a biophilic design where you'll see the outside comes in. We look at the vision of integrative wellness, where we have not only our prevention and health promotion activities, but we have intervention not only in the traditional sense of our primary care facilities and our mental health resources, but we also offer a lot of complementary treatment modalities. We have an outside meditation labyrinth, an outside Zen garden, an outside compassion garden. We have various facilities that allow for kind of the outside to come in a healing way. We have a water wall that's a part of our lobby. It's all about the sounds and the vision and the aesthetics of nature, which we know are healing. And in that, we know that we are offering a lot of different treatments that help bring us to a sense of holistic wellness. We have yoga, we have meditation, we have mindfulness, we have meditation alcoves, we have Reiki, we have both beginning and advanced mindfulness classes. We have creative art therapy, all different things to be able for students to come in and whatever personal or cultural lens that they have, they can find something that fits to their level of wellness. Hopefully you listen to the Zoom presentation on our 8 dimensions of wellness and our vision of integrative wellness. So I hope you'll come and visit us sometime in terms of looking at who we are and what we're trying to do with your student in terms of helping them deepen their relationship with their harmony of wellness. But let's look at why do we stay stuck at good. First of all, we learned that there's an interesting thing that happens to our brain when something becomes important to us. Once something becomes important to us, there are 3 unavoidable truths that you can't escape. The first is uncertainty. Truth is, you never completely control everything that's important to you. There's always a possibility that you could fail or lose at that thing of importance. And if you did, there would be a cost. You would pay a cost at some level. You would hurt at some level. We also know in today's time that whenever we engage in something that matters to us, we are aware that people are watching us. They're watching what we're doing and they're forming opinions about it. And we feel that evaluation. And sometimes what we perceive them to be evaluating and what we perceive them to be thinking may be accurate and sometimes it's not accurate. But if you dare to care, you can't avoid these 3 things. And when these 3 things get activated, this is the result. Fear of failure. This is not danger fear. It's the part of your brain that gets activated when we are aware of 2 concurrent things. 1, uncertainty, and secondly, uncertainty about something I care about. And when those things come together, we feel that as pressure, psychological pressure. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. But that's what we feel. We feel values-centered fear, values-based fear, values-based pressure. Now, if we were to kind of naturally respond to that in the way we would normally respond to this kind of pressure, we tend to go in one of 2 ways. We either over-control and master, or we avoid and escape until it has to be done. Perfectionism and procrastination are the neurologically natural ways we cope with values-based fear. It's human. It's what we do. We actually call this the fear-based model of excellence because you actually attain excellence doing it. It actually kicks your body. You use your neurological system to kick your body into a different gear of motivation and focus. And it works up to a point. Think of it this way. If I can perfectly control everything, if I can control everything through my perfectionism, then I don't have to worry about failing. Or if I can that's meeting pressure with pressure, intensity with pressure. Or if I can step away from this pressure long enough until it has to be done, then I don't have to worry about fear when it has to be done, because when it has to be done, fear doesn't matter. Then I step in, and if I can pull this off at the last minute, then I've succeeded. So we actually attain excellence with this. Why is this so important now? And why is it so important for you to understand this? This generation of young adults between the ages of 17 and 29 have the highest incidence of fear of failure than any other previous generation because of something very wonderful and wise about them. This generation no longer wants to succeed. They want to succeed in something that matters to them, something that speaks to them. But those opportunities, those meaningful opportunities, have never been more competitive. The competition is fierce and relentless, and they've known it for many years. So by the time they reach our doorsteps at the university, they have become specialists and experts at controlling and avoiding their way to excellence. There have been times where they can step in and do it perfectly and can control everything, or there have been times when they can pull it off at the last minute and they do well. This is the model they bring. It's a human model. It's not a bad model. It's not good or bad, but it's what keeps us stuck at good. Think of it this way. Perfectionism is characterized by long periods of intensity and short periods of relief. And the emotional residue of that is chronic worry, because you're constantly having to worry about everything that you have to control. On the other side, with procrastination, it's characterized by long periods of relief and short periods of intensity. And the emotional residue associated with that is chronic guilt, because you feel guilty about waiting until the last minute. So you just go back and forth between worry and guilt, worry and guilt. So while it works at some level and it kicks us into a different gear of motivation and focus, it either causes us to feel too intense or not motivated enough. And so when we look at that, this is what we have to kind of contend with and deal with. For something very wonderful about our young adults, they're setting themselves up for a plateau effect. But why does this actually result in a plateau effect? Think of it this way. What is happening here is what started with our why, what matters to us, has now been eclipsed with what if. And neurologically, we're just naturally primed to cope with what if through over control and avoidance. Why does that get in the way? If you think about it from this standpoint, if I'm leading with fear, whenever I lead with fear, I move into a need state. And what I'm needing reassurance that everything will be okay. I will look for that reassurance by becoming very dependent on outcomes. I'll need to know that things are going okay. How did it go today? What were my experiences like today? How's my roommate doing? How am I fitting in here? How's this class going to work out my first day of classes? Are we even going to be able to stay here all semester? You start looking for the outcomes to determine whether you're going to be okay, because you're needing reassurance. Remember, if we're leading with fear, we need reassurance that everything's going to be okay. And what happens is when we need that reassurance and we start looking for outcomes to determine whether it's going to be okay, we start keeping score. And we develop this chronically evaluative mindset, that doesn't turn off. How am I doing now? How about now? How about now compared to yesterday? How about now compared to you? We get very comparative and very evaluative. And in that process, it creates a level of strain that eventually gets in the way. Nothing bad happens, nothing awful happens, but what happens is it starts to get in the way. The fear-based model of excellence eventually hits ceiling effect and increasing cost. They've been able to do this through high school, but with strain, because some of them are coming in here very restored and some of them are coming in here exhausted for what it took to get them here. In college is where you'll start to experience this starting to get in the way. They'll just realize that I just can't pull it off the way that I used to, or I just can't control things the way I used to. It'll start to get in their way, and there'll be an increasing cost. Did you know a chronically evaluative mindset is one of the leading causes of insomnia today? At the end of the day, we quiet the body, the mind turns on and starts replaying the day. It starts replaying the day, and when it replays it, it doesn't do it neutrally. It will always punctuate that replay in some kind of judgment, usually some kind of critical judgment. And we then immediately go on to the aspect of the demand to have to compensate that for that tomorrow, which immediately overwhelms us. So as we move into this, what we've learned is the fear-based model of excellence gets in the way because we develop this chronically evaluative mindset. Well, what do we do about it? And what do you do to help me with this? Well, essentially, we developed this program. We spent several years understanding this plateau effect, but then we became fascinated with, well, what do people do that flourish to move beyond fear-based excellence into this deeper, authentic level of excellence that enhances productivity and fulfillment and resilience? These are the 4 steps that we take our students through. We developed a program. It's a mental training program. We don't shy away from the fact that it's work. It's work, and it's mental training, but it's work that they're worth doing. And what we do is we take them through a different way of thinking. We take them through 5 paradigm shifts that work at these 4 tasks. We have them rethink values and think differently about values. Rather than thinking about values clarification, we think about values relationship and how to move to a deeper level of values so that that becomes the purest form of human motivation instead of the natural form of human motivation, which is fear and comfort. So we move them to a different level of authenticity, and then we focus on the cornerstone of adult self-esteem, which is actually predicated on integrity. How well does my behavior line up with what I say matters to me? And how do I manage that in a healthy way? And then we move them to an advanced level of coping, of managing the absurdity of our world around us right now and the uncertainty that is around us. How do we manage fear differently other than through control and avoidance? We actually move them through this process of teaching them 6 different strategies for managing fear differently, and then teaching them advanced coping skills that fit for this kind of generation. And then we teach them how to train for flow, looking at flow and knowing that we've all experienced the flow experience before, the deepest level of excellence, but can you train for it? And you can. I'm happy to say that when you look at this, we have over 2,000 students. This is completely voluntary. We just ask students at the beginning, if you find yourself at any time during the next 4 to 5 years wanting to feel a little more fulfilled, a little more resilient, or just a little more productive, that we might be a place that you can come and learn these techniques. I do want to share with you an open educational resource that if you want to explore some of these principles on your own, please feel free to go to this nonprofit organization. This is the heart of our research. And you can go through it on your own and pick up some of these principles that are similar to what some of your students will go through. It's a .org. You can take this and go through it on your own. It's completely free, and it's an open educational resource. But most importantly, what I'd like for you to keep in mind is I want to get to know you, and I want us to work together on making sure your student flourishes. If you have any questions about this, I want you to kind of feel free to give me a call. I've got my cell phone on the screen there, and you also can email me at any time. But I want to leave you with these 3 things. How do you help move someone from a chronically evaluative mindset to flourishing? Well, we actually know moving someone from a chronically evaluative mindset to flourishing is actually moving them to an expressive mindset, where they are completely engaged in the expression of what matters to them and managing the stress of that really well. So one thing I always want to hasten to point out, you will never hear the term stress reduction among our health and wellness staff, because stress is a function of caring. We want our students stressed because we want them engaged in things that matter to them. And as you saw from the last slides, to engage in anything that matters to you involves uncertainty, which involves stress. So we want them stressed. We just want them to hold that stress in a healthy manner. That's why we talk about stress management rather than stress reduction. Well, I need your help with a couple of things, and I'm going to give you 3 strategies to think about. If any of these strategies resonate with you or this concept resonates with you, keep in mind these 3 things during this semester with your student. It's the most natural thing, and I have 2 boys. They'll always be my boys. They're in their mid-30s, but they'll always be my boys. I have 2 boys in college, and it's just the most natural thing in the world as a parent when they were in college to just ask how they're doing and how did things go today? How did things go today? How did class go today? How did that quiz go today? How are you doing with your roommates? Just the most natural, loving thing to ask. And so you'll naturally want to do that. And the only problem with that is it's a loving act, it's a caring act, but it also triggers an evaluative mindset. They will start reporting in. They feel like they need to report. And what you may find is they kind of will start distancing from those kind of questions. They may start screening your calls a little more. Instead, I encourage you to think about asking a different question. In your own way, using your own terms, your own terminology. Don't parrot me. Don't follow my words. But in some way, ask them when you talk with them, share a highlight with me. Share something meaningful that happened today. And then let them share that. Because what they may share that's meaningful is it might be something that was great, or it might have been something meaningful that was hard or disappointing. But when you ask them to share something that mattered to them today, or share something that's meaningful today, they get to choose. And it's not a report card. And it shows that you're really interested in learning more than just what they're experiencing every day. You're getting them to tune in to find out what's meaningful to them about being here. Then there's going to be also, secondly, there's going to be a time when your student will reach out to you for support. Because one of the things that we hope at William & Mary is that they have days that are absolutely amazing and the most beautiful days of their lives. And we also know there are going to be days that they'll struggle, because we want them to struggle, because we want them to take risks. And we want them to engage in things that are hard and meaningful. And there's going to be some days when they may call heartbroken or disappointed for whatever reason. And the most natural thing for us to do as parents is to want to fix that and to want to heal that wound and heal that heart. And so we go in and try to take that away from them and fix it as soon as we can. I'm going to ask you instead to ask a different question. First, listen to them fully. Listen to the whole thing. Don't catch them halfway through because you've already figured out what it is. Listen to the whole thing and ask questions. Be curious. Ask more questions to understand it. But the first question I want you to ask when it's all done is, how can I be of most support to you right now? And then be willing to be coached on that. Let them coach you. We tend to kind of move into the kind of support that we feel we're best at. So if we're good problem solvers, we'll tend to steer that conversation to where I can solve that problem. Or if we're something else, we'll tend to steer it a different way. Instead, listen to them and ask them to coach you. They just may want you to listen. If so, listen. They may just want encouragement. Give them encouragement. Or they may want you to solve it. They may ask, I want your head. I want how you think about it. By all means, jump in and tell them your thoughts. But don't tell them, you need to do this. Say, well, when I think about this, what comes to me is maybe this. What do you think? That type of thing. But the third thing is, when it's all said and done at the end of that conversation, it's so important to tell them that you have faith in them and their ability to get through this chapter. That you know it'll be hard and it won't be linear, but that you have faith in their ability to get through it. And that really matters, because trust is the only thing that overrides fear. Letting them know you trust in them and trust in their ability to work through it. And also letting them know that it's not a linear process. I wish so much and hope so much that your students have a linear experience, but they won't, because life is not linear. And we want them to be able to ride that linearity out. The fear-based model of excellence creates a short path model. It creates this linear model where it needs to build on each other in this linear way. And whenever they get a detour, that's when they panic. But a value-centered model that focuses on flourishing can allow them to see those detours as necessary part of their learning and growth, and helps them manage the disappointment associated with it. So I ask that you join me in those 3 steps. And I ask that you teach me about your student and join me in this collaborative process of their growth and development. And I want to be able to open it up now for a few questions. Cecilia, anybody have any questions that we can address or talk about?
All right. So we don't have any in the chat at the moment, but if any families would like to put any questions in the chat, please feel free to do so. But in the meantime, I would just like to say thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I remember during my transfer orientation, I remember hearing you speak about this, and it was so helpful. And hearing sort of a refresher now where I'm going into my senior year, it gives me hope in a time of confusion and not really knowing what's going on. I know that everything will work out. So it's very comforting.
I appreciate that, Cecilia. They have, it's interesting how many people have had the very misfortune of hearing me a lot, like you, over and over. But the thing is, these are principles that you can't hear enough. In fact, every time I present these, I always come up with a takeaway for me, because it speaks to us at a different time. I know there was a question about how do students get involved in this as a course. There's actually multiple ways. I do teach a course on this. It's part of our wellness courses. So I teach a 1-credit course every semester. So that's one way they can take it. The other way is we try to honor how people prefer to learn. So there's multiple platforms. They can come and do it individually, one-on-one. They can do it as a form of workshops. They can do it online. They can also do it as a part of the book that's written about it, where they do it for kind of a book club where we do group discussions around it. We really just kind of take, how do you prefer to learn, and try to create multiple modalities and platforms for them to learn in that way.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like we've got a couple good questions coming in.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start with a question. Do you have any specific advice for students proceeding remotely this fall?
Yeah, but the part about that is the sense of isolation. So one of the things that we're going to work on a lot on is to try to still build a sense of community for our students that are learning remotely. Think about this developmentally. Think about this as parents. Think as us being parents. Just think about all of the work that your student, that we as parents have done to kind of develop them and get ready to strike out on their own. And then here they are at home, learning remotely, because of very good reasons. I mean, it's right for them to be doing what they've chosen to do. And we need to honor that and trust that. But these are examples of, we really encourage them to access our virtual wellness center, which will offer programs every day to access the community engagement opportunities, because there will be virtual opportunities to feel a part of this community. But it's also going to be our responsibility at William & Mary to make sure that they are feeling well connected to us. And as a teacher of one of these courses, I'm thinking a lot about, how do I make sure our students that are remote still have that opportunity to really feel connected to the students through discussions and other ways. This is going to require resilience. And so I encourage them to kind of go on our online program, and to also reach out to me, because I'm planning on working with developing some workshops for our remote students around these principles that I think are really important. It's the same thing with our transfer students. Cecilia, you were a transfer student. When you think about this need thing, the need for this to be right is even more amplified. For our transfer students, we really have to work with developing that trust, because for them, they put a lot of pressure on themselves for this chapter to be the right one. And it just spurs that chronically evaluative mindset.
Wonderful. So it looks like we're getting several questions about how students can access this program online. And so I don't know if you want to speak on that, or if I can talk about how we're doing this through orientation. Either way is perfectly fine with me.
Sure. So we do with the students, they get exposed to this. So they heard me ad nauseum on Saturday. They heard my TED Talk ish kind of approach to the fear-based model of excellence, and invited them of how they can access. And I've already heard from a lot of students already about accessing it, and we're just going to feed them in to these portals. But if they want to go online, they can work on it online at the slide that I showed you. So the lifevaluesinventory.org is kind of an online learning platform where they go through these different stages. It's just set up a little differently because it's more oriented toward online pedagogy, which is a little different than the courses we'll teach, but the same principles apply. And then what I always encourage is after you go through the online program is to contact me, because I'm always available to follow up. So what we'll often do is, like, for instance, Cecilia might go into the online program and come through and find the concepts that really speak to her, but then we'll come back and follow up with me, and Cecilia and I will work together on how do we really hone in on the things that speak to her. That's kind of how we do it with the students. They only need my email address and they only need that website to get them started.
Wonderful. All right. Well, it looks like we've got about 1 or 2 more minutes. So if there are any final questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And if there are no more questions, we'll give it a few seconds to make sure that there are no final lingering questions that anybody has. And then we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Yes, so there is one final question about the presenter's contact information. So you'll
Yes.
see Dr. Kelly Crace's name is actually the email account that you can email to get in touch with him. And if you would like to give any further contact information, let me see, I can try to put it back up on the screen, or you can just say it, up to you.
Sure. So the slides too, which I think you'll be able to go back and see the recording at some point in time if you want to. So you can always go back and revisit the slides, which has my contact information. But my email is kelly.crace@wm.edu, and my cell phone is 757-876-0110. And so feel free to contact me, call me at any time. And also, we're not just here for your student, we're here for you. This is one of the few times in our world where the transition to college is as big a transition for parents as it is for students. Whether this is your first student to go to college, your last student that's going to college, both or neither. It can be, no matter what, this matters. And so please let us know how we can support you in this process too. Reach out to me. I'd be glad to talk with you.
All right, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly Crace. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to parents and families, and also all of the time that you spent working with students. I really appreciate that so much.
Well, thank you, Cecilia, and thanks for deciphering all my hand signals and everything. You did a great job. I appreciate the tag team. All right, and a whole lot better than picking my nose, right? That worked a lot better than that.
Yep, I think so.
Y'all take care. Be well. Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you.